Okay, it looks like we slowed down a bit with folks joining, so I'll just go ahead and get us started. I know that all of you have busy days. My name is Ray Pepley, and I am a counselor at a high school in Meridian, Idaho, and I am the professional development co-chair for the PNACAC group. And PNACAC is the Pacific Northwest Association for College Admission Counseling. For those of you who are new to the PNACAC group, so glad you joined us. So you're participating in a webinar series called College Counseling 101 that is targeted towards counselors who are new to the profession or just have a couple years under their belt. So glad that you joined us today. And speaking of joining us, I have some people that I wanted to introduce. We have Erin Jensen is with us today, and she is our PNACAC, chair of our PNACAC tech team. So she's working on the logistical side this morning, and then she's probably going to bounce. And then we have Palmer Muntz, and Palmer is with the University of Alaska Fairbanks. He's a regional counselor, admissions counselor up in the Pacific Northwest, and he's my co-chair in the PNACAC committee. And then we have our awesome presenter today is Meredith Lombardi, and she is with the Common App. And that is what we're here today to talk about, the Common App. She's going to take over in a couple minutes and just share what the Common App's all about, why you would use it with your students, and how we can support our students as they work through that application. So I'm very excited to hear what she has to say today. We're going to start with a poll because we want to know who is with us today. And so Erin's going to put that up. So yeah, it looks like more people have joined us. So glad you're here today. But we're going to just, like I said, start with that poll. Oh, I might have missed something, but maybe we can start with the poll and then I'll go back, Erin, to the session topics. I missed that part, sorry. So we just want to know, where do you live in our PNACAC region? How many years have you worked as a high school counselor? And then what's your comfort level in using the Common application? And then after you vote, you'll see on the screen our upcoming topics. Hope you can join us in those as well. Erin, I don't know if I can see the results.
I'm watching how many people are participating. We're up to 81 and it's kind of petered out a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and share.
Oh, awesome. Okay. I didn't know if I messed that up. Oh, excellent. First year. So glad that first year folks are with us today. And then 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5, and we still have some 10+ years joining us. Thank you for joining us. It's awesome. People with a lot of experience and lots of people from Washington and Oregon. So glad you guys are joining us. It's excellent. Looks like we do have a few pros with the Common App. That's awesome. Great, medium, and not quite comfortable. Great. Thank you all for sharing that. That's wonderful. I appreciate you taking part in that poll. Like I said, the slide that you see now is the one that shows the upcoming webinars. Hope you can join us in November for the new FAFSA. We have someone from NCAN who will be here to share with us about the changes to the new and better FAFSA and updates and changes. So we're looking forward to that. One thing I also wanted to mention is, like the other webinars, this one will be recorded because I know you are all in buildings right now working with students and you might be interrupted and need to maybe leave early. So please know that this is recorded and you'll have access to it later. So, all right, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Meredith. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say, Meredith. Thank you again for joining us. This is great.
Thanks. And hi, everyone. It's sad that I can't see your faces, but thank you for being here in spirit and also just taking time out of the day. Like Ray mentioned, I know that you have a million things and you probably will have like students, popping in and asking you questions, and others who are just helping you be great multitaskers. But hopefully I can be here as a resource to answer your questions. I do have slides, so I will present those, which hopefully will be helpful either for you just to review or for those who are going to get this as a recording, that they then can go back and see this information. I'll also share the slides as a PDF with PNACAC so that you all can refer back to anything that I share. I have been with Common App going on 8 years. So maybe some of you who have been doing this for a while have come to some of Common App's webinars when we do our spring conferences or our spring, what's new webinars. Or you may have just joined me in something in a previous time. So perhaps you know me. I came over from the counseling side. I was a high school counselor with DC Public Schools. And then before that, I was with Fulton County Schools, which is right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. So it's really, again, for me, just great. I get to lead education and training with counselors at Common App. I also oversee our counselor advisory committee, which is just a great way for us to stay connected as an organization, to hear what are the challenges you all are facing, what challenges are students facing, how can we better support you, how can we bring more joy and simplicity to this process. And so know that you do have an advocate here within Common App supporting you. And so you will get my contact information. You are welcome to reach out at any time. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think it's been mentioned in the chat. Anytime if you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A so that we can get to those at the end. And anyone, if you do want to stop me while I'm presenting, you are also welcome to do that. Let's make sure this gets up. Okay. Just to get kind of, we're going to go through a lot, but again, feel free to stop me if you do have questions. My goal really is to present for as short of amount of time as possible so that I can answer questions, because the more you're in the system, honestly, the more questions you have, because there are a lot of nuances. And so anything I can do to help simplify and clear up anything that you are dying to know, I want to be here as that resource. In terms of just Common App as an organization, we have been supporting over 1 million students each year submitting through the platform. We have seen the number of first-gen students on the platform grow, but it has been around, or currently this past year was right around 1/3 of students using Common App. We are a nonprofit organization. So we are a membership organization of colleges and universities. And we have this commitment to the pursuit of access, equity, and integrity in the college admission process. This mission focus really drives a lot of what Common App does. It may not be something that you're thinking about as you sit in your chairs supporting students, but when you hear about all the things we're doing, it's really with this mission lens. We also then have a vision to be the trusted source to access, afford, and attain opportunity for students. And again, this is something that drives a lot of the work that we're doing and the initiatives that you will see that Common App is up to, beyond just the providing a application platform. We have grown a lot. So again, I know some of you have said you've been in this for a while. Some of you may be thinking, oh, Common App is new, but it may just be that it's new to you because it's new in your neck of the woods or region. So it's been around since 1975, probably since most of us went to college, but it was around. And I actually can say I used the paper Common App in the 90s when I applied to college. So that tells you when I applied to college, because it was earlier than 1998, which is when the Common App actually went online. And then it really has just grown exponentially as a membership, especially with public institutions joining. So that started, all the way back in 2001. And then, Palmer, we were just discussing how now University of Alaska Fairbanks just this year is coming onto Common App. Thinking about that breakdown of where you all said you're joining from, the large numbers of Oregon, Washington, you've also seen, your public flagships join, which then brings more of your students onto the platform, which then makes you need to be more of the subject matter expert to answer your students' questions. This is where we stand right now. We crossed over the 1,000 mark in the 22-23 application season, and now we're approaching the 1,100 mark. But as of today, 1,074 colleges and universities. It's predominantly four-year institutions. It does not, membership in Common App can include two-year institutions. We do have a few of them on the platform. But majority are the four-year institutions. It's a mix of public and private. About half of the institutions do not charge an application fee. So again, students are submitting individually to colleges, even though they're using one platform. So for some schools, they'll see an application fee. For others, they will not. We'll also talk about fee waivers. We're in all 50 states, DC and Puerto Rico, as well as in 18 countries outside of the US. If you did want to see the full list of new members, including University of Alaska Fairbanks, as well as some others in the region, we do have our new member blog post out on our blog. CommonApp.org is just a great place to direct you and students to go, just to, even at the simplest, is the college, do they accept the Common App, going to our Explore colleges. But beyond that, this does provide students an opportunity to do searches, to learn more about colleges, to do virtual tours, to access image galleries, see things in a map view. I just think the map view is so helpful for students when they just, do not know geography very well, or maybe thinking about where they might want to go to college. And they've identified a state, but not really knowing where in the state somewhere is a college is located, or maybe it's on a major body of water, or something that they're, wanting to be near mountains. Just their personal preferences, being able to see on a map, or where major airports are or not nearby. So using our filters, just getting access to learning more about colleges before they even begin the application process. For you in your schools, offices, organizations, you can get a free Common App map poster. We update this every year with the current year's listing of members. Again, thinking about that chart that I shared earlier of the growth of membership, it was a lot easier to have 500 colleges listed on a poster now compared to 1,074. But we do have this national poster. You can request it. We'll ship it to you for free. We also launched regional maps this year because we do know that students do more often tend to stay near their homes. And so you may want to also order a regional map for the Pacific Northwest. So that is also available to you for free. Just want to, again, kind of touch upon more of like what we are doing as an organization and how it is impacting our initiatives and the work that we're doing. So we have seen an increase in the growth of first-gen students using the Common App, and it has grown more than just returning or continuing generation students over the same time period. In addition, we're also seeing a similar increase at 3 times the rate for low-income students compared to higher income students. But what I'm going to show you on the next slide is that we still have underrepresentation on our platform of low income and median income students. Yeah, so this is taking a look at comparison of US demographics of communities and labor force and where the split is with median income, and then looking at the applicant pool of Common App, where we then have, again, more students who are coming from above median income households in comparison to general US population information. And with this, we know that we are not comfortable as an organization with this and that we want to close this gap. So we have put out a statement as part of our next chapter work called our moonshot, which is a bold goal that we have that by 2030, we will close this equity gap in students pursuing post-secondary opportunity. I'm sharing the link, which you can go to at a later time to really learn more about this work and what it's going to take. We have, through our data analysis, basically identified that in order to close this gap, we need to invite and include an additional 650,000 students on the Common App platform from below and median income households, and that this is the way that we will achieve this goal. We have been doing a lot of equity work just based on our mission work for the past several years. And so you may just be familiar with some of these initiatives. Evolving the application has been about removing barriers in the application process, increasing the diversity of the actual institutions that are on the Common App by bringing more minority serving institutions onto the platform, to then bring students onto to see fit as well within our membership. We are doing a lot with direct admissions. So that's that proactive outreach to students before they even submit an application to let them know that they're automatically admitted. And then we're doing a lot with college affordability, helping students to be able to see that we can provide them with information related to college financing while they are, sorry, I'm going to put my headphones in 1 second. My coworker has just arrived home. So we are also doing a lot just to help students understand how to connect with scholarships, how to get scholarships directly through the Common App, as well as how to get them information about the FAFSA during the process of applying to college. All right. Again, if you are a data person or you just like to understand like what is going on in my area, or what do I need to know about the higher ed landscape, we have, through grant funding a few years ago, we were able to build out a data warehouse at Common App that specifically has an equity lens, and then to be able to share out that information publicly on our website. So our data analytics and research team has been publishing research briefs after every major deadline. So think about November 1st, January 1st, and then kind of the end of the season, like March 1st, they're putting out trends that go, to our members to help them identify if there's any trends that we need to be concerned about, as well as to counselors and media and others who are interested in what's going on, given that we have such a large number of students across the globe who are using our platform. So you have access to this information. We also have state reports that we put out. Currently, if you go out to the website, they're still for the 21-22 application cycle. Our data team is currently finalizing the end of year reports for 22-23, and that information should be out there in the next few weeks. This gives you just a snapshot of what we see. Again, I've mentioned this over 1 million students. So 1.3 million students last year, 8.6 million applications submitted. 10% are coming from outside the US, from over 200 countries and territories. Show the top 10 states here. You can see at this time, none of the PNAC states are in that top 10. Alaska, you're at 51 because DC is also included in the 50. But it'll be interesting to see how that may change now that, again, University of Alaska Fairbanks is part of the membership. Showing growth, again, we look at a lot of this with equity lens. So even though we saw an 8% growth overall in students using the application last year, year over year, we saw larger percentages of growth for underrepresented minority students, first generation students, and then fee waiver eligible students. That large growth in fee waiver eligibility, we did a lot of work to simplify the fee waiver request process. So in the past, students had to select criteria, and they didn't see the criteria until after they said that they needed a fee waiver. We changed it in the application so that all students saw the criteria first, and then just had to say yes or no, whether they were eligible. And so this is partly driving this increase, is that students, and again, our data even showed us, students who lived in communities that we would expect them to qualify for a fee waiver in the past had not requested that fee waiver. And so we were pleased to see this increase in fee waiver usage. I did a little snapshot so we could look at just what's going on in the Pennacook region and what that growth has been over the last 5 years. So unique applicants basically is an individual student who has submitted at least one application through Common App. So these are numbers of students. So back in the 2018-19 season, we had 27,876 students. And then you jump to this past season, 22-23, you can see that we were over 40,000 students. We know that, the expansion in the state of Washington really drove a lot of that growth in unique applicants, with so many of the public institutions in the state of Washington joining Common App. So then similarly, not surprising, on the right-hand side with applications in the region, being down, 116,000 in 18-19, and then jumping to 224,000. So it's not that more students are submitting more applications. It's really as the membership has changed with schools in your region joining, the students who are submitting those applications off of Common App are now submitting those applications through Common App. Hold on one second. Okay. Other things, this is this past year, okay, so where were students applying in the region? So this is basically the top receiving institutions from students just in your 5 states. Top 5, University of Washington, Oregon State, Washington State, University of Oregon, and then Western Washington. And then it then it continues on from there for these top 20. This is the type of information that you would see in the state reports, but you would be able to look just for your particular state. When you go in the state report, you can also see county activity. You can see demographic activity for students, first gen, breakdowns of race, ethnicity, and gender. So just a lot of helpful information, I think, for you to have and also be able to share out with your students and families. As far as the application, I'm going to assume that you all have a basic understanding, but also I know that there's some new folks in here, as well as people will be joining and listening later as a recording. If you do not have your own practice student account, I highly encourage you to have one. It is the best way for you to advise students, because you'll have a better understanding of where things live in the Common App. So it is as simple as going to commonapp.org, selecting create an account, and then selecting education professional. And you can then have basically your own student account. You are just not seen as a prospective student for any of the colleges and universities. You cannot submit an application when you have a practice account. I mentioned a little bit about fee waivers. Basically, all students see the question in the application, and they are given the list of eligibility criteria, and then they are able to say yes or no as far as whether or not they qualify. Last year alone, there was over $133 million that was saved by students. Thanks really to member colleges not charging that fee to students, because they collectively, we do not want that one piece to be a barrier for a student to not even apply to a college because they're worried about what that cost may be. We certainly, again, have over 50% of colleges on Common App that do not even charge an application fee. But for the ones that do, they don't want that to be the barrier or reason a student does not apply to their institution. If you are someone who's visual and you just want to have quick walkthroughs, or you have a resource library or place that you share information with your students and families, we, over the past year, our marketing team has been great in recording these short 5-minute videos with about different parts of the process. So there is an entire 5-minute video with a walkthrough of the first year application. There's also one on the transfer application if you support anyone who might be starting at community college and then wanting to go on to a 4-year institution. We have ones specifically on the activity section, on the essay prompts, and then frequently asked questions. So these are all available on our YouTube channel. This is a feature that hopefully you are aware of, or you will now be aware of, which is you can have your students create their accounts before senior year or the year that they're applying. This is not about applying early. It is about dispelling myths, creating transparency, and helping students see that once they start the application and see the questions, that they feel empowered, that they have the answers to the questions. Sometimes that lack of transparency or just being in it makes them fearful because they just don't know what the questions are. And so they get nervous. So this allows them to get in there and to just start answering questions or to explore. We will roll over on August 1st anyone who has created an account in the prior year or who had activity in that prior year. We basically see about 25% of students now are creating their accounts prior to senior year. So we will roll over their username and password. We'll roll over students, whatever colleges they've added to their list in Common App. We will roll over any answers that they have responded to in the common portion of the application, so on the Common App tab. We also this year have started now rolling over advisor invitations. So that's one of the different recommender types, and we'll talk about that. What we do not roll over are the college-specific questions. So we're not, like, even though we'll roll over the student's college list, we're not rolling over an essay response to a supplemental essay or anything on a college tab. That also means we're not rolling over the FERPA release, so Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. We're not rolling that information over whether a student waives or doesn't waive their rights. We ask the students to answer that in the year that they're applying. Since recommender invitations are tied to FERPA, that means that we also are not rolling over recommender invitations. We do, as I mentioned, I think at the beginning, we do webinars every spring to give a heads up of what's changing in August so that counselors are informed and then are prepared when students start in that next application cycle. This is just a high level of what we covered in that webinar. When you get these slides, there will be a link on this slide that does provide, it's a great booklet that walks through visually all the different updates that came in the 23-24 cycle. But just to highlight some of those changes, one was that there is now a third option for legal sex, X or another legal sex. We had been planning for that for over a year and had been working with our members, given that so many states already have this as an option on their government official IDs. We also made changes to communication preferences so that students felt more welcome within our application and how we communicate with them, and also just giving them agency to choose how they want to be communicated with. We gave more autonomy to students where they could make changes within their application on things that in the past they had to reach out to our support team on. One of those being if they had said that they were going to start start college in 1 year, but then they plan to take a gap year or do something else. And so they needed to change that. They can now do that on their own. Similarly, we had some, individuals who wanted to change from practice accounts to live accounts. And so students can do that on their own as well now. We also made some changes in the writing, in the test section regarding writing scores, because that was confusing for students who maybe had taken a writing test, but did not want to report those scores. So just making that clearer for them. We also just, again, are just really trying to be transparent to students. So if a college is suppressing information or hiding it on a PDF, we wanted that to be really visible for the students so they understood why they weren't seeing a section or certain questions on their application. We've made improvements on the financial aid tab. It used to be called financial aid resources. Now it's called financial aid. And it includes really like much clearer information and sections based on student feedback, sections on specifically on scholarships, just making clearer on our integration with College Board Scholarship Search, calling out like how Jack and Cook Foundation Scholarship is on Common App. And we will be using it this year to actually send alerts to students when we are matching them with scholarship opportunities, which we had been doing for the past few years as a pilot with Scholarship America, but now we're actually bringing notifications into the application. What didn't change, because we always get those questions, are, the essay prompts did not change. We still have the same 7 essay prompts, and we did not change anything to the activity section. We do know that those are 2 parts of the process that students spend a lot of time on. Again, you'll get the link that will have the full booklet that walks through all of this in more detail. So you are welcome to reference that. This is just in regard to the Supreme Court decision. We as an organization had to, we were tracking it for a long time before the Supreme Court decision, but we also had to make decisions before the Supreme Court even announced anything. And so we knew even before any decision was made that we would continue to have race and ethnicity questions in the application. They were optional before the Supreme Court decision, and they remain optional. We do have, in the past, we've seen 97% of students responding to those questions. It's still too early to tell in this season what we'll see, but certainly we will be monitoring this. And when we share out our November 1 and other deadline reports, we will continue to provide information about race and ethnicity in our reports, because we just think that this is important work that we need to do as a mission-driven organization. What we provided for member institutions was a way for them to hide or suppress student responses to race and ethnicity. So even if a student responds to those questions, the college can choose not to see that information when they are reviewing the PDF. Now, it doesn't mean that the college does not receive that data, because they can still receive that data. It just may not appear on the PDF that an admission reader would see when they're reading the student's application. We do have a landing page that has additional information. So it's somewhere that you can go and take a look if you would like to learn more. All right. Want to just, again, talk like a little bit about your space and where you are interacting with Common App beyond the, what the student experience is on the application. So Common App has these 4 recommender types: counselor, teacher, other recommender, advisor. We did make a change in this year's application to make it more transparent for students when colleges perhaps didn't allow for an other recommender or don't allow for a teacher recommender. That used to just be hidden in the past, and now it clearly says to a student, like, this school does not accept other recommender letters. The 4th type, advisor, I think it's really important, especially for any of you who may be using one of Common App's recommender integration partners. So if you're using Naviance or SchoolLinks or Maya Learning or CAlpha, you have your own views there, but you don't have the same amount of visibility into the student activity that counselors using Common App's recommender system have. And so you might want to consider having students invite you as an advisor so that you have some more of that visibility. Common App now, what's great is that you can use one email address across these different recommender types. again, for those of you who have been doing this for a while, it used to cause, like, it would break the system if you tried to have one email address as a counselor in the Common App Rec system, but then as a counselor also in an integration partner. That is no longer the case. So you can use one email address and be invited in multiple roles, in multiple integration partners, and nothing will break. So just keep that in mind. And if you are invited, perhaps in our system, you might, if you're, let's say you're not a school-based counselor, but you're in there as a community-based organization. So a student invites you as an other recommender to submit a letter, but then they also invite you as an advisor because they want to share their application with you. You can log in one time to our recommender system with your one email address, and you can just toggle between different roles in the recommender system. This is a snapshot within the recommender system, especially for those of you who may not be using it because you're using an integration partner. When you're in there, you have access to a lot of resources you probably don't even realize are in there. So one is you have access to the requirements grid. That is the full list of all Common App members, all of their deadlines, all fees, all requirements, including, what letters of recommendation are required, what counselor forms are required. You can either download the whole thing, it's a PDF, or you can sort it when you're in the system, or you can look up a specific institution if you just have a question about one college. You can also use search filters within the rec system. So imagine if you're navigating a large caseload and you just want to find your students applying just to the University of Oregon, for example, or you want to find your students just the ones who need a mid-year report, or you want to be able to look just at students who are needing to complete courses and grades, a self-reported academic record. You can use those filters to find those students. You can also, again, you get to see the student progress. So like the 7 sections of the application, have they actually answered the required questions. Students can give you access to preview their application as it's in progress. So it's not like once they've submitted, it's real time. What have they currently responded? That is a feature that students own and turn on or off for you, either as a counselor or advisor. And you also have the ability to export all of this information to Excel. So it is a one button download. So if you wanted to just see, okay, here are my students, here are all the colleges they're applying to, if you like, again, data, you want to be able to identify students, you can get all of that one button download as Excel. We did just record a short, again, like 5-minute video, just walkthrough of the rec system. And so you can get to that if you go out to our playlists on our YouTube channel. I'm seeing lots of questions. I don't see the questions yet, but I'm really excited about getting to your questions. These are, again, these different integration partners that we partner with, which has really grown over the past several years. And we do have 2 new ones that joined this year, Pathful Explore and Define Career. Our goal in this process is really to simplify it for you and for other recommenders. So Common App does work as a one and done process, meaning you're doing a form one time for a student. You're not asked, you or teachers, you're not asked to tailor information for particular colleges. So when you're writing your letter, or when teachers are writing their letter, we're advising you not to tailor it for a particular school, as it would be sent to any of the colleges that you are that the student is applying to. On the counselor side, that would go to all of the schools. When it's teacher, it's assigned. It's truly an assignment. So the student drives which colleges the letters go to. These are the various different forms that live in Common App. You may not touch all of these. It will just depend on your individual students and whether or not, as an example, any of them are applying early decision, or if they're using a fee waiver, or if you need to use the optional report. So all of these, you may interact with, just depending on your individual caseload. Another point of clarification, we like to say forms follow application submission. That means your forms will never get to a college before the student applies. You can still do all of your work. You can have it all, and we will hold it in Common App. And then at the point that the student hits submit, then we would submit your forms along with that. But that also is important in that if you have students, as we know, many colleges have different ways of students applying. If your students do apply through another means and not through Common App, the colleges will not have access to anything that you've submitted, because it only will get delivered if the student actually hits submit through Common App. So if you have students who change how they're applying, it's really important that you collect that information from students so that you know how to get the transcript and letters of recommendation to the colleges in another way outside of Common App. Speaking of forms, if you are interested in diving into like, what is the value of school profiles? Why do I need to write this letter of recommendation? How do colleges use school forms? We are hosting a webinar in just a few weeks to dive into this. So it's a mix of Common Appers. We have a researcher who's done a lot of research on this work. We have some of our member institutions and a counselor, and we're just going to have a good conversation. Our website has tons of resources for you. Letter writing guides are out here. We have also Common App Ready, which are basically handouts. So you can upload them as PDFs, or if you're doing classroom visits or parent workshops or parent nights, you can get these handouts. They're in English and in Spanish, and they are just a complement to your curriculum that you're already using. If you do not get our newsletter, this is a great place to just sign up for our newsletter, because once a month we'll send out updates. Working with your younger students, we do have this Reach Pathfinder, which came out this year. So Reach Higher has been part of Common App since 2019. This was an initiative started by former First Lady Michelle Obama, really encouraging students, especially first-gen students, to continue their education after high school. And so we have a lot of student-facing resources and engagement efforts that are coming from our Reach Higher team. We're about to start like that first deadline, November 1st. We do have 24/7 support through Common App. We have really great already built out solution centers with FAQs, but anytime you have a question, your students, your families, they can always reach out by clicking contact us through our support team websites. We're on social media. I'm pretty sure this is my last slide, and then I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And that is that we will continue to continue the conversation. So if you work with any community-based organizations that are not in Common App's drop-down list, so the students have access to, identify working with community-based organizations. If you'd like to see an organization added, we do have a way for you or for a CBO to ask to be added into that list. We also can pop into virtual meetings or come to conferences through a training request, whether it's for your district or your counseling group or for your school. So if that's something you're interested in, we have a training request form. And then we also have an ideas portal. If you would like to see things work differently, either for your process or for students, we also have this enhancement suggestion space where you can put in your ideas. With that, I know that was a lot. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to take questions. I don't know the best way to start, Ray, so I don't know if you have been...
I just tell you what they are. So someone asked, so she is at a Gear Up school. Would all of her their students automatically qualify for application fee waiver?
Yes. Yes. And I would also, again, in the CBO question, you would want please have your students identify that they participate in Gear Up. Actually, we were at the Gear Up conference this summer, and we presented data on how not a lot of students who are participating in Gear Up are actually identifying themselves within the application. And so we're trying to get more of them to see themselves, that they can identify that in the CBO section. And also Gear Up did a great job of advocating to have Gear Up listed as part of the fee waiver eligibility criteria. So your students should see it when they see the fee waiver question, that yes, they should say yes.
Another great question. Is it possible for counselor emails to be available on a drop-down menu in Common App? Our staff emails are similar but different from student accounts, and they commonly mistype our address with the student suffix. We have students think they invited us, but it did not go to the correct email.
Oh, yes. This is it is a common question and request. So at this time, it is, again, the student drives what email they put in there. My advice would be, one of the things that I shared on the website resources is we have a high school details information sheet, and you can like pre-fill out the information and then give it to your students. So you literally can say like, this is my name, this is the email you should put, here's our, the graduating class size, here's how we rank. Like, you can have that information and then give that to students so that they're all putting that same email. That's the best way at this point, because it is student driven. And then I would say, put that in the ideas portal. But at this time, like, we just don't have pre-populated users within our system on the recommender side, in the way that, our integration partners have with their individual contracts with schools.
Is it possible for Common App to send a notification if a student adds a school requiring a I just lost it. Just flipped. Requiring a school. Shoot. Hold please. Is it possible for Common App to send a notification if a student adds a school requiring a counselor rec or other required materials if their initial account setup did not have one?
Yeah. So again, another popular question that we get in terms of notifications, because sometimes you have students who are really great and they set up everything in August, and then they don't come again until November, and then you're, and actually put in their dates, and then all of a sudden these deadlines are, in 5 days. At this time, we don't have email notifications. Our compromise was that in the recommender system, we did create a notifications box so that you as a counselor can see when things have changed, when things are new, when there are upcoming deadlines. So it's your way to see that information, but it's not tied outside of the system in emails. But I think that there's something there, because I dream that, one day there will be something, because really, if you think about it, counselors are in this much more often than teachers. So teachers in particular do not get alerts on deadline changes. So if they get invited again early in the process, they have no concept of actual deadlines. So I think that there's something there. I think there will be an alert system at some point. This is being recorded. But again, that's another thing. I will share this as feedback with teams at Common App, but also in the ideas portal, where you can say, like, it would be really great if we could have alerts on these things, email alerts.
So another question is, I have a student who is showing no deadline selected. She's applying to PLU and she knows the deadline is October 15th. She is unable to see how to change that in the Common App.
Yeah. So in the application on the dashboard is actually where students, they don't change it on the dashboard, but it tells them on the dashboard, hey, like, you don't have a deadline selected yet, go to the My Colleges tab and answer the questions. And so I was about to share my screen, but Ray, I just want to, I have a question about, are we ending in 10 minutes? When does this actually end? Because
I think we can go over a little bit. Some people may need to drop out.
Yeah, Aaron, I think Well, yeah, Erin maybe could answer if it's.
We can continue recording if we need to go a little bit late,
Okay.
and anybody who needs to leave early can watch the ending later.
Yeah, cool, thanks, Erin.
Fabulous. Okay, so then I will, I'm just gonna log in so I can show you. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay, so you all are seeing this, this red box, like you're in practice account. I'm on the dashboard here and it's saying add your term or admission plan. That is what drives deadlines. So if it's not selected, that's why a student would not see a deadline and you as a counselor would not see the deadline. So if I select that, it brings me to the My Colleges tab, to questions. And then here's where they'll say, okay, preferred start term. This one only has one option. And then preferred admission, early or regular. I'll just say regular here. That is what determines deadlines. So now, like if I go back to the dashboard, it's going to have a deadline here. When the student is on the My Colleges, and they're just in the college information section, it's also going to show them the different deadlines, but there is a disconnect. If you just saw how I did it, here it says early decision is November 1, regular decision is January 3rd. But when they're selecting it, it doesn't list the date right there. It only lists the plan. They also, in their application, just like I mentioned, counselors have access to the requirements grid. Students have the requirements grid as well. So they can get to it here on the dashboard, or they can also get to it here on College Search. When they're on either one and they click on the requirements, they can look at just My Colleges. So it can give them the shortened version. Make this a little bigger. And then they can see all the different admission plans and the different deadlines. But it's basically they have to add it on the My Colleges tab in order for the date to populate. Other piece of advice for you all, because the download grid is only the full PDF of all of the 1,074 member institutions. But this is actually, it does copy paste very well into Google Sheets or Excel. So you or students, you can just copy, all the data and you can paste it if you want to have your own mini version of a requirements grid. I'm going to stop sharing. I can always pop back into the application as needed. Ray, you're on mute.
Yeah, I told myself don't forget, and I forgot. Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Another great question. If we decline reporting student ratings on the general school report, does that put our students at a disadvantage? Most colleges in our state don't appear to use it. We don't want to disadvantage our students applying elsewhere, but it adds a huge amount of workload to our increased Common Apps for public schools.
The short answer is no, it does not disadvantage your student. And again, I don't want to put Palmer on the spot, but being that Palmer's on the college side, if you want to affirm my statement of, doesn't matter if counselors or teachers do the rating scales.
We're probably a bad example because we're very much just a courses taken and grades earned school. But for us at UAF, no.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I don't know, Ray, if you wanted to provide any of your own personal thoughts on that.
Oh, I've done it every time. So I don't.
Yeah. I can give you all the perspective from Common App, which is that we can affirm that there are schools that do not do the rating scales, and their students are not disadvantaged if you, as a school or district, choose not to do them. So there are counselors who have strong feelings one way or the other. Like some of them like them because it helps them differentiate their students. And then for other counselors, they don't want to do them either for the time reason, or they just believe that, they don't need to. So it is personal choice, but you will not be disadvantaging your student. In a similar way of the letter of recommendation, we provide in the Common App, if the counselor letter is required, we also say, if you're unable to provide a letter, you can also say, like, I'm not going to be providing a letter. A college is not going to disadvantage the student in their review if you're not able to provide the letter.
Thank you for sharing that, because I personally, I feel like the letter takes a lot more time for me than the rating scales. I can usually do the rating scale pretty quickly, but the letter is, because I want to write a good one for my student. I don't want to just copy and paste from some form. So that's really good to know. That actually helps me quite a bit to hear that. Okay, a few other questions. So our school is called Toledo Junior Senior High School, but I've noticed that the name associated with our CEEB is Toledo High School. Do our students need to use Toledo High School on their applications?
Yeah, got it. So the seed code names that we have in Common App actually come from College Board. So they basically give us a list, an updated list each year that we pull into the application. It is honestly up to you. I mean, the code itself is more important than the name. But if you want the name to show up differently, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to our support team, and we can have it changed to the way that you would want the name to show up. So it would just be like, if your school website shows it in a different way, and you want it in Common App to show as your website shows, then you could just request it and we could make that update, and that might simplify it for your students so they don't have to ask you every time, like, am I picking the correct high school?
Okay, follow-up question on Gear Up. I have seniors this year, but Gear Up is not with my class in my building. Do they still qualify for the fee waiver because we have Gear Up in the building for the lower grades? Ooh.
Okay, I have to go back to that.
Yeah, Gear Up not with seniors, so it's new.
So it honestly, it might not, because I know it's like grant based.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing that your students qualify just based on financial need. It's not just tied to Gear Up. It's like, do they participate in this program? Do they get a SAT or ACT fee waiver? Do they get free or reduced lunch? Gear Up is just one of the many eligibility criteria. And my guess is that they are qualifying even if they're not getting Gear Up services that year.
So Meredith, I have maybe a related question. When the question came up earlier, whether Gear Up gets qualifies for a fee waiver, the way I was hearing that answer was, if a student is attending a Gear Up school, the fee waiver will be applied automatically. That's not really the case. The student needs to identify themselves as being at, okay.
Yeah, which is a good clarification.
Title I schools too, right?
Correct. Everything
Thanks.
in the Common App, yeah, it's a really great differentiator because it's the student is driving the application, so the student is self-identifying.
So the student has to know enough to self-identify.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is why in the past we saw under usage of the fee waiver, because students didn't know that they qualified. Yeah. I mean, most students don't know how these things impact them when they're responding to the questions. Yeah.
Okay, when students apply to multiple colleges on Common App, do they get charged application fees for each school? These are students who do not qualify for waivers. Great question.
Yeah, so yes, it is as if they were applying through individual institutional portals, but they're just doing it through one Common App portal. So they're applying on different dates. And each time they submit to one school, they pay that school's application fee. So it could be $50 for one school, $65 for another school. Another school may not charge an application fee. They're just processing it one at a time for each school. It's just that they only have to use one login and password to get into this portal, the Common App portal.
I work at a small 400 students rural high school that has never published a school profile. Does this put our students at a disadvantage in the application process?
Court, you should come to our webinar on October 26th. I am going to put the registration link in. Let me put the registration link. Hold on one second. Okay. Oopsie.
I think the answer to that is it could potentially put the student at a disadvantage if working with a college that's not familiar with your school. But I don't think any college would intentionally disadvantage. It's just they might misinterpret or have to call your office for information, but they're not going to hold it against the student that there's no profile.
100%. I think that, what we're trying to uncover at Common App is who is who is creating school profiles, who is not. For schools that just don't know where to begin, like, how do we provide some template information or basic, like, if you were to create a school profile, here's some information that you could put on there. In all honesty, in the school report that you complete for Common App, there is a section that's just getting at school profile questions. So even if you don't have an uploaded PDF one pager, if you're responding to those questions, those are questions that colleges are typically looking for answers for, like, how many students do you serve? What percentage of your students go on to 2-year college or 4-year college or other post-secondary opportunities? What are the demographics of your school? So you're already, if you're answering those questions in the school profile part of the form, you don't necessarily have to have that upload. But we do know that there are inequities with who is and who is not uploading school profiles. And that's some of the research that we're going to talk about in this upcoming webinar.
To that one. Okay, clarifying question, which I appreciate. So students will not be penalized if the counselor doesn't submit a letter of recommendation, even if it's required.
Correct. It's kind of similar. I think what Palmer was just saying, and again, I'm using words that you can disagree with, but colleges are looking for reasons to say yes. They're not looking for reasons to say no to students. The counselor letter can just help provide additional context. So if you have information about a student that may not come through their application, that is where it can help. But if you don't have any information that you believe can add to the application, or you haven't had a chance to learn, get to know the student, or you want to just be able to provide a few sentences and not a full letter. Like, we do try to give you the flexibility so you don't feel this pressure. So there are options. We also in these systems say, hey, like, maybe they're new to your caseload. Maybe they've just moved in. Maybe you don't have student questionnaires that you use. We say, you can upload a letter from someone else. So maybe the student had a counselor before you. You can upload the letter from that counselor. But yes, you are not going to hurt the student unless there's like really good context that the college is not going to get, because the student is not talking about it in their application. And if you don't put it in your letter, then how does the college learn that context?
The only thing that concerns me, and I can't speak for every school at all, but if a university says that a counselor letter or recommendation is required and it's not provided, one of my concerns is the file may not be marked complete, may not get reviewed. So I might be inclined to reach out to the individual university about that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I think where I was going, Palmer, is not to just not do it, like check it, but actually in the system, you can say like,
Yeah.
I am not going to be providing a letter. So at least for the systems, they understand. But the hope would be if the college is asking for it, is there a way to provide them with something?
And I think
That
you're
is,
right.
yeah.
Universities are not wanting to penalize students for something that's out of the student's control. It's just if somehow the system sort of catches and doesn't proceed because of a missing item or something. Yeah. In the chat, we had a comment. This is probably more of a suggestion. It would be really convenient if the Explore Colleges section of the Common App website also provided a filter for career interest. The comment is that 90% of my 9th to 12th grade students have ideas about their area of career interests, but don't have specific thoughts about specifically where they wish to attend college. So.
That is a great flag. I will tell you one way now that you can sort of do that through the commonapp.org website is there is a magnifying glass, like a search tool on commonapp.org. And if you were to go there and just type in, let's just say like entrepreneurship, like let's say your student, that's what they're interested in, it will then actually give you all the list of colleges that have listed entrepreneurship as something that they're highlighting in their school profiles, not high school profiles, but in the college profile. So you may have students that are interested in something unique that they want to put there and then just see, oh, I wonder what colleges are highlighting this. Because we do know, again, students don't know this, but right, colleges have hundreds and hundreds of majors. And it is hard to navigate that. And honestly, there are great tools out there like Big Future, College Board's Big Future, where students can do that. We even point students out to Big Future for doing some of that more robust career to major mapping and understanding. But I think at a minimum, your students, there is a way, even though it's not a specific filter on Explore colleges. But I also take that feedback back because I do agree that, we never want a student to show up at a college and it doesn't even offer the program or major that they're interested in pursuing.
I had here at the hotel, my internet cut out halfway through the webinar briefly. So you may have addressed this. I have a personal question. You mentioned in passing direct admission. Did you talk about that at all? And could you unpack just briefly what Common App is doing with direct admission?
Yeah, so we have been piloting direct admissions for the past few years. And it is proactive admission to students before they even apply. Piloting truly like the last few years, it was like 7 colleges participated out of this large membership. Last year it was 14 colleges participated out of the large membership. And it was with the pilot, it was run as I know we're getting in the weeds here for all of you, but it was run as a randomized controlled trial so that we could actually see if we were to send emails out to students before they've even submitted an application and said, congratulations, based on the limited information you put in your Common App, mainly GPA, you receive an admission to this institution. Yay. So like you already get that up front. Now it's just the student just has to go in and actually hit submit, but they're not fearful of like, will I be accepted or not? Because they've already been accepted. And through the pilot work, we did see that students were over 2 times more likely to submit their application if they had gotten this offer versus if we did no outreach.
That's a great program, and man, that's critical for the high school counselors to know about that.
Yeah.
Suddenly a kid may walk in and say, I've been admitted, and they never applied, and to understand the context. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has So again, small pilots, it is state specific, meaning a student would only, like if the college is in Oregon, as an example, only Oregon students would get direct admission. So we're not doing it like a student in Idaho would not get admission to a school in Alaska. It stays within state. This year we have, we're expecting over 70 institutions to participate in 23-24. Yeah, are you one of those? Yeah. And that is in 27 states. So it is a huge shift, but it's the pilot work that really showed, like, how do we remove these barriers and fears for students when, like, on the admission side, they know that they would have already admitted these students, but we've put so much pressure on the students to have to prove themselves, like, then they're afraid of not getting admitted. If we can just proactively say, like, you're in now, you just have to fill out the information, but you don't have to worry about it.
Gotcha.
And so we'll really see, like, this scale up to 70 plus institutions. So that's all going to be shared more broadly in the next month, because we'll really be doing that outreach to students in mid-November is the plan.
Hearing that. Oh, thank you, Meredith. I appreciate you. We just had one last thing we were going to plug to those who are still with us. And then we wanted the folks that are going to join later through watching the webinar. We wanted to talk a little bit more about Slack. So, because we mentioned that earlier without explaining what it is. So Slack is a messaging app that colleges have been using. Palmer, you use it, don't you? And your team
Internally,
uses.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So like my team uses something called Teams because we're Microsoft Office, but this is such a great program. I'm enjoying it. I just personally speaking, I am a member of the Facebook group, the college admissions and high school counselors Facebook group. And I kind of feel like it's similar to that, but it's not on social media. And you have to, well, like the other one, you have to join this one. But you know what I like about it, you guys, is that I feel like it's a safe place where those of us in the CC101 can come together and share resources, ask questions in a safe place, which I don't always feel like is safe on Facebook. I feel like some people kind of just kind of, I think, just maybe misunderstand questions or whatever. But I don't feel like it's going to happen here. So consider joining Slack if you'd like to. We'd love to have you on here, and we'll share and support each other and just build a community of.
And Aaron, I believe you've sent invitations to everyone who's registered for the webinars.
I have. If they have registered recently, I'll add them soon. But everybody who registered as of about 2 weeks ago has been added. So keep an eye on your email for an invitation from us.
And the more people that use it, the better it'll become.
Yep. CC101 has about 100 so far, so which is great. Yeah, so I get alerts when someone adds something. So ask a question, go here for the support. I hope you consider it.
And as we're wrapping up, can I throw in one other plug? Yes. So we're running a parallel webinar series called Intro to Admissions Counseling that's intended for college admissions counselors, the road warriors who are coming to your schools, for those who are in their first, second year, whatever. So maybe as you're talking with, an admissions counselor, you can tell that they're a little bit, they're newbies. Might suggest to them that they check out PNACAC's Intro to Admissions Counseling webinar series. It's free, just like this one is, for all members of PNACAC, and we'd love to have them join us. It's also once a month throughout this school year. So thanks for letting me sneak that in.
I'm glad you're saying that, because I just met a brand new counselor at one of my community colleges, and I'm sure you'd love to join that. So thanks for the reminder, Palmer. So thanks everyone for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on November 9th. This is our conversation about the new FAFSA. I'm excited to hear about that. So thank you again, Meredith. You were wonderful. So appreciate your support.
Thank you so much for having me. Please reach out anytime.
Thank you. Everybody have a great day. Take care. See you next time.